With the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945, we now have this 2,000-year-old story about Eve, who is generally seen as a sexual temptress that says Eve was actually sexually violated. This idea that she's the one that brought about shame is actually not true. And I just thought this is one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen. In this story, we find ourselves with this perfect divine realm, and somehow something happens where a rupture is created. And from this rupture, we get the material world that we know now. In charge of this material world are these rulers who think they're gods, but they are not. They decide they want to try and find a way to entrap this divine power. So they create a human being, and because they aren't really gods, they cannot breathe life into their human being. And the divine realm feels sorry for this human. They end up sending Eve to Adam to give him life. So these lower gods are jealous of her, and they decide the way that they're going to trap her power is to rape her. Eve knows that this is going to happen ahead of time, and her spirit actually splits from her body and becomes the tree of knowledge. The rulers then cruelly rape her material body. Then the story kind of picks up again with what we know, that Adam and Eve are put in paradise and are told they can eat from any tree in the garden except the tree of knowledge. So the serpent comes along in the story, and in this story, the serpent is good and an emissary of the divine realm, and says, you know, Eve, the rulers are guarding their power and they don't want you to have this knowledge. But if you eat from it, you'll become sober and your eyes will open. So Eve trusts in these words of the serpent. She also gives fruit of the split off part of herself to Adam. And they realize that the rulers are beasts, and they go on to birth the saviors of humanity who eventually are able to overcome these evil, violent rulers of the world. I have not found any story that talks about sexual violence in this way that shames the perpetrator rather than the victim, and then where the technical victim is really not a victim at all in certain ways, is able to really re-empower herself through herself.